And what about women who get a taste of a toxic relationship or a bad relationship and they keep going back to it?
That would be a trauma bond. What happens with a toxic relationship is they give you love in doses. So they'll give you a bit of love, then followed by a lot of trauma, then love, then trauma. And what happens is we get addicted to that love. We see potential. We're like, oh, but it used to be so good. Or do you remember when he used to do that to me? How can I let him go? So they hold on to the good and forget the trauma in between, and they end up staying with that person. But the reality is, if you have to think about when it was good, it's not good. Yeah, because a true healthy relationship, there is no, oh, but I know what he used to be. I know what we could be. It is just, we're cool, we're calm. It's not this spark, like fireworks all day, every day. But there's that steady peace, rather than, I remember when we used to have it good, or I remember when he was so kind. There's no holding on to memories. It's more what is going on day in, day out is more peaceful.
And if a woman right now is listening and she's going through a divorce or a breakup, how can she get over it, and what's your message to that woman?
My message would be, have a very clear vision of where you see yourself in a couple of years. And that might be married, kids, happy life. Now ask yourself, if you were to freeze time and freeze this partner, would he fit that vision? If the answer is yes, he'd be perfect, then fight for it. But if the answer is, oh no, that would be traumatic if we had kids in this environment, then you are holding on to an imaginary imagination. Well, your true vision deserves somebody else, and you to be somebody else, because we can become very toxic in a toxic relationship. So the best thing to do is remember your vision. And when you remember your vision, you start to realize, would this person fit that vision? And if the answer is no, simply be happy for them. Be happy for them. Be like, you don't fit my vision. You're not ideal for me, but I wish so you would meet someone who would fit yours, but you don't fit mine. And I wish you the best, but I have to find mine because I deserve it.
And what about long distance relationships? Do they work?
I think they are tricky in this day and age, unfortunately. It takes a tremendous amount of trust, and it takes a tremendous amount of stability created before you went long distance. So I think usually they work when there's an element of, oh, we can date other people, but when we get together, we're together. And I don't know how healthy that is, but I would say, though we've got so many channels of communication to keep relationships alive long distance, those same channels can be applied to other people in this day and age. And that's what's difficult. And people crave intimacy, whether it's emotional or physical or intellectual, whatever it is, they crave intimacy. And when they can't access their partner, sometimes they can, use those means in the wrong way. So it just depends, but I would say it's slightly difficult.
And creating imaginary situations in our head.
Well, women are amazing at that. If he hasn't replied, he's definitely, with another woman. There's no alternative. He can never just be sleeping. It's always, and I would say, if you're naturally insecure, which many of us are, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Don't torture yourself with a long distance relationship, because it can torture you.
And what about social media with relationships? Has it complicated the way we look at relationships, and how can we utilize it as a tool in a positive way?
It could be really positive when it's used in proportion, but I think what's happening, especially if you've got a large following, I can speak on behalf of large following and small followings. Large followings, what it does is it creates an element of narcissism. What happens is you start to see human beings as disposable because there are so many alternatives available to you. You think, I just post a picture, somebody will message me. I'm hungry, somebody will take me for dinner. It takes nothing. So large followings create an element of narcissism, and it makes people start to see relationships as disposable. Small followings is less problematic, but then the reality is, even with small followings, you'll see partners liking pictures, and it causes a lot of trauma. I know women who've come to me and are thinking about surgery simply because their partner keeps liking pictures of girls with it. So it causes a lot of trauma. I think, unfortunately, what social media does is it makes you think you've got so many options, but There are not actually that many options out there, and the reality is we're more connected to people we're similar to. But social media means that you can contact somebody in LA, you can contact somebody in Ghana, you can contact, and we might be similar on social media, but our norms and values will be very different. So I think it gives an illusion of options, but I don't know how healthy it is. But it is. But I have heard some great stories. I've heard so many people meet someone really great from social media.
Yeah.
I'm always on the worst case scenario side because of what I do for a living. But I do think if you use it in a healthy way and you meet somebody who's social, I think using people's social media behavior as a judge of character is actually a good way to look at it. If you meet somebody whose social media's behavior is bothering you and he's not willing to compromise on that, at least you know this is a difficult partner.
Yeah.
But if you meet somebody whose social media behavior is so lovely, you're like, oh, maybe we could do something about this because he's actually behaving really well and I can see it. It's visceral. His behavior is great. So same thing, boys and girls, I think you can get an insight into what kind of person they are. So it can be used really well.
And you mentioned the client of yours who was considering surgery because they're
Clients.
clients. Wow.
Yeah.
So is liking other women's pictures or sending fire emojis, is that a cause for concern? Is it on the path to cheating if they're not already?
I don't think it's necessarily on the path to cheating, but it depends how your partner reacts to it. Now, if your partner doesn't mind, do whatever is in the confines of your relationship. But if your partner has expressed it hurts them and you're choosing to validate other women than validate your partner's feelings, then that's a cause for concern. Because what that signals is your partner would rather hold on to their independence and hold on to their autonomy and hold on to validating other women over and above what makes their relationship more smooth. And it doesn't mean you get controlled by your partner and they control you in every aspect. Yeah. But if this is one area that's causing her some damage, as a partner, you should be like, oh my God, of course I'll stop. Like, I don't want to make you feel insecure. But if you have a partner that says, grow up, you're being insecure, you're being childish, it's not that deep. Well, if it's not that deep, why are you doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it really depends on the dynamics. But I would say that person who rejects somebody's plea for help is not really ready for a relationship.
And what about people who post their fairy tale love stories online all the time?
Yeah.
Is it healthy or should you keep that a bit more private?
I think when people have been hurt a lot in their life, either in their childhood or upbringing, what happens when they finally find love is they're overexcited. So when
Look at me.
Yeah, and so when I see people who are overposting, it makes me wonder, what pain did you go to get here? Why you're super excited about being in love, which is great. I mean, as you should be. But this level of kind of showing suggests that there was a lot of pain going into it. Now, people with problematic pasts tend to have problematic futures. So the people that post the most, you'll see that they end up breaking up. But it's not because they posted. It's usually because it took them a lot of trauma to find love. They were really excited when they got love. They wanted to post every second of it, but they didn't work on the relationship, the trauma and the relationship. And so the cycle repeats and they find themselves in that pain again. So the reason I say it's a red flag is not because there's anything wrong with being in love and being excited, but a level of, it's a bit like when somebody starts posting their Lamborghinis and nice cars. Chances are they didn't grow up with money. There's nothing wrong with it, nothing wrong with it. But when you grew up with money, you just knew that was your dad's car. Like, there's nothing to, so when it's nothing exciting, you don't really post as much. Same thing happens with relationships. When you've had a stable childhood, when you've had stable levels of love throughout your life, as excited as you are, you're not posting all day, every day. So those stable people tend to last a bit longer. The ones that want to let everybody know everything, it's probably some level of trauma and they're overexcited. And so I can understand it, but I don't think it's healthy.
And what are some red flags we should be looking out for when we look at someone's social media, for example?
I would say if he's got like 200 followers but is following like 5,000 women, it's so cringe.
It's so cringe.
It's so cringe. And the reason I say, even with girls, I would say even there's girls out there that would be following 90,000 like influencers. Yes. And I would say both for men and women, when they're following that much, just imagine what their feed must look like. If they're following influencers and influencers and influencers, they're basically saying, influence me. influence me, not teach me. If they're following pages where they're learning something, it's different. But what their social media following shows what they want to consume. If it's fashion, if it's body, if it's vacuous, they want to consume something more shallow. Whereas if it's something business related, work related, workout related, etc., then you know that they want to consume the right information. So I think it does tell us a lot. It tells us where their mind is and what they want to consume. So pay attention to it.
Can women have it all? A career, a family, a successful relationship, or maybe a business? Can we have it all? Or, as you mentioned earlier, do we need to be a bit more feminine and balanced?
I would say everything in life that you want has a sacrifice associated. So if you want a great body, you have to sacrifice food, certain types of food. If you want a great career, sometimes it sacrifices time with your friends and family. So having everything is a little bit harder because it takes some sacrifice. So having a really great career might mean sacrificing time with your kids. Having, being a stay-at-home mom might mean sacrificing your potential. You could be a really great, you could have a really great business and you're stuck at home with the kids. Not that it's bad, but it involves a sacrifice. So having a relationship also means a sacrifice because you have to think about both people's needs. I would say to measure what you want in life, think about the sacrifice it takes. And if you're willing to sacrifice it, do it. If you want to be a millionaire, that means sacrificing time and energy with your friends and family. Are you willing to sacrifice it? Yeah, perfect. If you want a career, but it means sacrificing time with your kids, as long as the sacrifice is something you can handle and you can deal with, you will feel like you've had it all. But if you get it all on paper, but you didn't realize what the sacrifices were, you're going to get to the top and feel very empty. So bear in mind the sacrifices when you're looking for what you want in life.